Achieving your ultimate goal of becoming a champion never comes without sacrifice. And sometimes you have to sacrifice the things that you love or the things that you worked hard for in life to achieve being a champion. You work 365 or 366 some years, 24/7 to become a champion. All your hard work, everything that you sacrificed have come down to this one game. 60 minutes and probably the coldest weather that a Super Bowl has ever seen. There can only be one. And when the clock hits triple zeros, there will only be one champion. Yes, this is the WC. I should know about being a champion. That's the reason why I did that. But yes, this is the breakdown of Super Bowl 48 like I promised. And this season has been magnificent. It's had some ups, some downs. A lot of downs for my team. Wasn't a good year for them. But it all ends here. Super Bowl 48. Now, I'm just going to go through and run through this because this is probably going to be a long video. But I want to make sure I cover all the angles. Alright, let me first off start it off like this. The Broncos are favored by 2.5 points, which could mean a field goal. It could be 1 point. It could be a touchdown. It could be 10 points. Either way, they're favored in this game. Alright. Let me just go ahead and jump into intangibles. Now, this game is being held in New York. I just spoke on, the cold weather and all that stuff, all those other factors. I don't think the cold weather is going to affect either one of these teams. The intangibles are a push. Let me just go ahead and get that out the way. The intangibles are a push. Both of these teams are cold weather, bad weather teams. They were built for times like this, built for games like this. The weather shouldn't influence the outcome of the game, but it probably will. But that's probably the best part about it. I mean, really, watching the Super Bowl in the snow. That's probably the best thing about it. Let's just go ahead and the head coaches. Let's match them up. Let's go side by side. I like Pete Carroll. I really do. I like his motivational tactics. He seems like he's a laid back coach, but he seems like he's also a perfectionist. And I think that he's gotten this team to the point where they could go up against anybody anywhere and beat them. Alright. I think that they're just built from the ground up solidly because of Pete Carroll. Now you look at John Fox, and both of these guys are defensive minded coaches from my understanding. Alright. And both of these teams' defenses are just, lights out at times, especially the Seahawks' defense. I'll get to that a little bit later in the video. But both of these coaches, I can't give one of these coaches an advantage over the other because, hey, this is both of their first Super Bowl appearances. So as far as like football coaches go, these guys are so evenly matched. They're so squared off. It's so even right now to the point where you just have to kind of look at them and say, hey, there's no advantage between both of these guys when it comes to coaching. Just none. So I'll go push on that. I want to get into now the X factors in these games. Alright. But first, before I go into the X factors, I want to talk about how Peyton Manning could have been a Seahawk. When you sit down, you think about it, Peyton Manning could have played for the Seahawks. Now, if Peyton Manning had played for the Seahawks, where does that leave Russell Wilson? Does Russell Wilson even get that shot in Seattle? You know what I'm saying? Does he even play? Does he even get drafted by Seattle? Is he playing for another team? It's just almost like a domino effect. Because Peyton Manning went to Denver, Seattle drafted another quarterback. They wanted to go with Matt Flynn, but Matt Flynn flamed out. Now this video is not about Matt Flynn, but he flamed out. And that's the reason why Russell Wilson just stepped into that spot and He's just like I talked about this guy being the underdog, but has he really been the underdog his whole career? I'll get into that a little bit later too. But just to dwell on that fact a little bit, Peyton Manning could have played for the Seahawks. Just think about that. All right. Now let's go to the X factors in this game. All right. The X factor for the Seahawks, since they're the visiting team. All right. As much and look, I did my other video about Richard Sherman. As much trash as Richard Sherman talks, all right, he lets his play on the field back it up for him. And that's the reason why he's the X factor in this game. Now, I could have said Marshawn Lynch, but look, you already know what to expect from Marshawn Lynch. I'm expecting for him to put on a great performance. All right. But the X factor in this game is, you know, it's Richard Sherman for the most part. His performance against those Broncos wide receivers is probably going to determine this game. All right. If he shuts down, whoever he's, playing against for the majority of the game, the Seahawks are going to be in a great position to win this game. All right. His performance is basically going to, show the tall tale sign of, hey, it's basically like this matchup between the Seahawks defense and the Broncos offense is like the best versus the best. It's like a rock talking trash to a stone. That's basically what it is. So Richard Sherman for the Broncos, not the Broncos, but for the Seahawks, is the X factor. Now for the Broncos, the X factor. No Sean Moreno in that running game. Whoever's going to be getting the rock for the Broncos is going to be the X factor in this game. Because for a fact that Peyton Manning can light up the scoreboard. All right, he's got wide receivers that he can throw to all day. But no Sean Moreno is one of those guys like, when you talk about the Broncos offense, you talk about Peyton Manning, you talk about the Thomas twins. I call them the Thomas twins. You talk about Welker, you talk about Decker, you talk about that offensive line a little bit. Yes, you talk about all those guys. But you don't really speak on no Sean Moreno. Why? Why is that? He's a little low key. And Richard Sherman isn't low key. And he's an X factor. But I expect for the Broncos to come out in a run first mentality. Just to catch him off guard. Draw plays, screen plays. I'm expecting for no Sean Moreno to get the ball a lot. Whoever's in the backfield for the Broncos, I'm expecting for them to be the X factor for the Broncos. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into keys for victory, man. Let's just go ahead and get into it. For the Seahawks, the key to victory basically is going to be them force feeding the ball to Marshawn Lynch and using play action, setting the pace. The longer that you keep the Broncos offense off the field, the better. All right. You don't want the Broncos to set the tempo on the game. You don't want Peyton Manning to feel comfortable in the pocket. You just don't want these boys on the field at all. The longer that the Broncos are off the field, the better chance that the Seahawks have of winning this game. Let's just be honest. All right. All the teams that were able to beat the Broncos this year set the pace. They set the pace against these guys, and they just they keep the steady pace, and they forced Peyton Manning and that offense to move at a different tempo than what they wanted to work at. And that's what Seattle has to do. They have to force feed the ball and use play action down the field. Russell Wilson is athletic enough to make every single throw on the field. So them running play action should not be an issue. Maybe they'll probably do a little bit of the pistol. Maybe they'll do a little bit of the wildcat. Don't know. But whatever it takes for them to manage the clock, to keep that offense, that Denver offense off the field, the better. Now, for the Broncos, the key to victory is, just how many wide open receivers can Peyton Manning find? I mean, because like I said, the Seahawks have big, tall, aggressive DBs, cornerbacks and DBs. And this is probably the biggest challenge that the Broncos are going to have the entire season. This is their biggest threat. This is their best opponent. And it should be in the Super Bowl. All right. But, the key to victory for these guys is they have to get open. Peyton Manning cannot stand back in the pocket. All right. The quicker that Peyton Manning gets that ball out to wide receivers, the better shape that the Broncos are going to be in. All right. And like I said, I think that no Sean Moreno is going to be a big part of this game. Whoever's running the rock for Denver is going to be a huge part of this game. Because I think that just as much as the Seahawks want to keep, Peyton Manning and those guys off the field, the Broncos want to manage the clock. They need to manage the clock. All right, both teams need to manage the clock. Whoever wins time of possession, let me just say it like this: whoever wins time of possession wins the Super Bowl. All right, you heard it first here. So anybody else that tells you that they said it before I did is a liar, because you just heard it from me. Whoever wins time of possession at the end of this game wins. You can say that about every single game that's played, but in this game, like I said, both of these teams are evenly matched. The Broncos offense has a clear advantage over, the Seahawks' offense. The defenses are pushed. The coaches are pushed. It's going to be a great game on Sunday. My prediction for the Super Bowl is Peyton Manning gets his second ring. I think that I don't know if Peyton Manning is going to retire after this game. There's been talks and whispers of that. He's at the height of his abilities right now. It can only go downhill from there. You look at other guys that walked away when they were on top. The most recent that I can think of is Ray Lewis. I mean, Ray could have came back this year. Ray could have came back this year and played straight hand a couple years ago. So, I wouldn't be shocked if Peyton calls it quits after he says he's going to the Disneyland. I mean, both of these teams, look, I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle wins this game either. All right. If Seattle forces about 2-3 turnovers from Peyton Manning, Seattle could be raising the Lombardi trophy. But just for right now, the odds say Denver. My brain says Denver. My heart kind of says Seattle. I don't think it's Seattle's time. I don't think that Seattle's going anywhere. They'll be right in the thick of it for the next couple of years. Those guys are young. They're agile. Russell Wilson is just going to get better. The Broncos are probably maxing. All right. Not to say that they, that Peyton Manning can't put on a performance like he did last year, or this year, next year. But I'm just saying, like, the only place for the Broncos to go right now with their potential is kind of down. And the Seahawks, they're just going to keep getting better. So if they lose the Super Bowl, if you're a Seahawks fan, hey, don't take it personal. I think that Peyton Manning in that offense, Peyton Manning in that, in that team is just a better overall team. It's the WC. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Leave a like, leave a comment. Go ahead, share it with your friends. Let me know who y'all think is going to win the Super Bowl. And I'll be back with a video post game this Sunday. Maybe. Don't hold me to that. All right. Enjoy the game.